Maui wildfires disaster.
A news conference involving the governor along with county and federal authorities is about to get underway in Wailuku. This comes as the death toll from the fires climbed once again today to 99 lives lost. This wildfire is now the deadliest in the U.S. in more than a century. In all, the flames destroyed approximately 2,700 structures, most of them homes.
Now, frustration grew on Maui today when Maui police suspended a placard program designed to speed up access into West Maui less than 2 hours after launching it. That was after distribution areas were flooded with people. Maui police said they saw overwhelming demand from non-essential people and visitors. The suspension of the program is in effect until further notice.
FEMA's administrator is encouraging evacuees to seek federal disaster assistance. Checks of $700 are available for evacuees to help cover the costs of food, water, and medical supplies. There are also additional aid programs for property loss. In a White House briefing earlier today, Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said that President Biden is committed to ensuring Hawaii has everything they need.
And in a news conference about 90 minutes ago, Lieutenant Governor Sylvia Luke announced that a new storage warehouse in Kahului will help organize all of the relief effort donations. Now, it's state property, and the LG says the state is now identifying other sites that can be used for disaster relief purposes. As for donations, there is already a surplus of clothing. Instead, non-perishable food items are most in demand, especially proteins and vegetables. Water hand washing stations, water totes, and outdoor sinks are also needed.
The donation drop-off site, currently at the War Memorial Complex, will be moving tomorrow to the old Sears location at Queen Ka'ahumanu Center in Kahului. It will be open from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., accepting donations from the community. Now, once again, we are awaiting remarks any moment now from the county building in Wailuku, from Governor Josh Green, as well as county and federal officials on the disaster response to this Maui wildfires. I mean, there's so many different developments we expect to hear today, Ashley.
Yes, we're going to be hearing from Governor Green, Mayor Bisson, along with Maui Fire, Maui Police, I believe the Red Cross, the Maui Humane Society playing a big role in these efforts, as well as other officials and organizations connected to this disaster.
And it looks like Governor Green will be stepping up to the podium shortly. Let's listen in on his remarks.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, then we're, yeah, and Shelley. Okay, then we'll wait for a mayor. I need the mayor. That's it. Yep. Ano ai ke aloha ya kākou. Thank you for joining us today during this most difficult time, especially for the people of Maui. We are here to provide you with the latest information and updates from the county and the state relating to wildfires throughout Maui. I would like to remind everyone once again that we are the state of aloha. So we ask kindly that you please operate under the value of aloha, which is extending respect and kindness to each other. Questions and answers will follow promptly after the speakers conclude their remarks. Without further ado, I would like to invite Governor Josh Green to address you all today.
Aloha. Lots to update you on. Lots of experts here today to also unpack some of the things I'm just going to give you the top lines on. The recovery from this tragedy is proceeding, and it's proceeding extremely vigorously. As you know, the tragedy occurred on the 8th, late. Immediately, we asked for support, and the world has stepped up. Our communities have stepped up, and before I go too far, I want to say how much we appreciate those who supplemented the things that we were unable to do in the early days. There are extraordinary stories all across Maui and our state of people sheltering dozens of individuals in their home, taking multiple families in, as some of these other services got online. So I'm going to break some of that down. I also want to talk about housing at great length in a moment. So as far as the disaster, there are 99 fatalities that are confirmed. Chief of Police will get into some of these details. In addition to that, the search goes on, and he will describe the amount of the territory that's been covered. It's more substantial than you were aware of yesterday. We've had leaders all across the board helping our people. First and foremost, food and water. Over 1 million pounds of food has been delivered, and services such as and supplies such as food, water, diapers, baby formula are going out. Chad Buck's been one of our heroes doing this. Also, a coordinated donation center has gone into place courtesy of Lieutenant Governor. We're so appreciative of her extraordinary work with Chad and with all of our state officials. We'd like to tell people if they would like to continue to support. Of course, we appreciate any generosities. Most important right now are resources, financial resources, through Hawaii Community Foundation, Red Cross, and so on. You've heard many times how important that's going to be for our surviving families. So in addition to that food and tens of thousands of pounds of ice, for example, 57,000 pounds of ice that was delivered, we've begun much of the recovery for people in their daily lives. The things that you need to do now. If you are displaced from your job, you need to talk to the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations. We have a UI, that's Unemployment Insurance Call Center. It's open 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Please do that so you can get benefits to hopefully get yourself some resources right away. I talked about the donations, but we have multiple ways to get people into housing now. In just the last 2 days, we've secured the following: 402 hotel rooms now available to immediately put people who have been displaced into a hotel room for their family. Starting tomorrow, 1,400 units from Airbnb will be available. Another 160 citizens have stepped up with HHFDC to provide their houses to be shared. So it's just under 2,000 housing units are now available so we can get people sheltered. We signed a contract today with the Red Cross. We're grateful to them for their expertise. They'll be in partnership with us, FEMA, and the county to make sure everyone gets housed. If you have not been at one of the shelters, you'll go to Red Cross and you'll sign up there. These services, this shelter, these rooms will be free to people, and the resources will be covered through our disaster relief, through FEMA, through the state, through grants, Hawaii Community Foundation grants included. All of that's critically important. We've already placed 220 families into housing, and so you can see that the shelters are starting to empty out. We're trying to be careful because there's a lot of needs that are also being met at those shelters, mental health care needs, people getting wounds taken care of. But at all of these houses and apartments, hotel rooms, we'll be providing wraparound services. So that we want people to know about. We already anticipate at least 36 weeks of direct housing for individuals. It will probably go on much longer than that, just so people know. But we don't want people to think that they're going to get housed and suddenly be asked to leave. It'll be in 30-day increments, which will be constantly re-upped, so people will get housed. As I shared earlier, the scale of destruction is incredible, so our hearts are broken even a little bit more than when we were together 48 hours ago with the extra fatalities. Also, you know that we're well over 2,200 structures that have been destroyed. 86% of them are residential. The disaster relief is here. You saw FEMA, you saw the Small Business Association, you've seen the outpouring of support. What I can tell you is this: it's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time. As they go through all of the territories in Lahaina, they have to be very careful not to disrupt any of the homes there. So for those people who have walked into Lahaina because they really wanted to see, know that they are very likely walking on Evie, as the Chief of Police said the other day. That's why we're being so careful. We'll address other questions about how to drive in, how to get through. We know that it's frustrating, but at this pace, we'll accelerate. We'll go from stage 0, as the mayor and I discussed right before we came in here. Stage 0 is getting through all of the properties where those who have passed are. When we get out of that, we'll be able to open the road completely. We'll be able to make everything a lot easier. So in the coming days, we'll continue to give you these comprehensive updates. I want you to know we've also signed some additional emergency proclamations so that we can get other services to people, the most recent of which is to get health care for individuals. So A proclamation has been signed now by me so that people can get longer periods of their medications if they need them. We've also allowed outside providers, physicians and nurses from outside the state, to have licenses here in Hawaii and to practice. We'll be bringing hundreds and hundreds of mental health care workers into the state in partnership, not just with Red Cross, but all of our services at the state and county, because that's where a lot of the suffering is going to be. It's going to be mental health care needs that we need most. What I think I'll do is I'll basically pause there. I know you have a lot of questions about things like sirens and the response. We'll have a lot of time for that today. But thank you so much for your patience, and as promised, we're here to continuously give you updates.
Mahalo, Governor. At this time, Maui County Mayor Richard Bisson.
Aloha mai kākou. Velina mai pakahi apau. Mahalo no kahelana mai. Thank everybody for coming here. What I want to share with you is our deep condolences and empathy to the families who will begin to receive notifications from our department of any loved ones who have been identified, and the chief will get into more detail about that process. Again, we're also grateful for all the efforts that have been made by our federal partners, our state partners, and of course other county agencies, officials, nonprofits that are helping us. I did want to speak to the placards driving into the road system that was started. That is no longer in effect. We will be returning to status quo, and our status quo is that all residents of the west side can continue to access the west side through Kahakuloa. That continues to be in effect. All those folks who are providing services, deliveries, helping, bringing in items for family and friends can continue to go through Ma'alaya as long as they've received proper permission to do so. Again, we won't be using the placard system. This will remain on until we're done with phase 0, which is the current stage. So we have FEMA on the ground. They have 20 cadaver dogs. They have 90 personnel, teams that are here searching for our loved ones. And those folks will be speeding up that work. The number of dogs and folks that have come in has increased since this started. Phase 0 is the term that they use to describe recovering of remains. When that phase is done and they go to phase 1, we intend to again allow folks who reside in Lahaina to return to the Ma'alaya path. That is our plan. This is an evolving, fluid, dynamic situation, but I want to get that out to our public who are very interested in knowing when they can return. I also wanted to make it known, as the governor mentioned, the conditions at Lahaina town as an impact zone is very dangerous, it's very hazardous, and worse, we don't even know some of the hazards that are there yet. They haven't been measured. So anyone deciding to go there will take in toxic chemicals and other sorts of things that you don't need to be breathing. The last thing we want to do is have any loss of life for anyone else, because their curiosity outweighs their judgment. And so we ask that you heed that warning. The National Guard, General Logan, will speak to the extreme number of assets that they bring to the table for us. And I'd like our residents to know that those are additional assets that we're taking to protect you here on our island. And finally, I'd like to talk about the Family Assistance Center, which has been established at the Kahului Community Center. We're grateful to the FBI, the Red Cross, and our police officers, as well as our MEMA folks who are staffing that. We encourage all loved ones who have unaccounted for family members to visit the center, not just to give us names and cell phone numbers. And again, those cell phone numbers assist the FBI in locating people, but also, most importantly, to administer DNA swabs, so that we can make identification of anyone that is unaccounted for. Again, we also want to assure our immigrant community that none of the information you're providing to FEMA or to us will be used for any immigration enforcement. We know folks are concerned about that. We're just looking for missing or unaccounted persons. Then I'll leave you with just one last bit of information. We discovered yesterday that there was a family that was housing 60 people at a home, I want to say Napili, but on the west side, and many of those folks were unaccounted for, and they've now been reunited with their families. Thank you.
Mahalo, Mayor Bisson. Next, Maui County Fire Chief Bradford Ventura.
Aloha. I'd just like to give everybody a little update on the efforts that we're having on the island, just to understand what the situations are at the various locations. There's a lot of attention being given to Lahaina, but as you all know, we had multiple fires on the other side of the island that we're still having to give quite a bit of attention to. I'll start with the Lahaina, the fire area. Currently, the perimeter of that fire is cool and hasn't expanded. We will be flying forward-looking infrared over it tomorrow morning to determine if there's any hot spots around the edges of that fire, and that'll be able to guide us to some of the working areas that we still have to address on the Lahaina side of the island. Today we're working with USAR units that Mayor had mentioned from our federal partners. We have 6 of our fire units embedded with them to do their searches in case there's any type of fire suppression needs in any of the buildings that they're entering. The Kula fire, which was the Omapio fire that went into the Kula 200 area, there are still lots of hot spots in that fire. That fire does have quite the long perimeter, and it's in a lot of inaccessible areas and forests as well as gulches. We have had 5 resources on that fire every day since day 1, and including the last several days, multiple helicopters. In the evenings, we'll be patrolling that area with resources, at least 1 resource to be out on the Kula fire at all times, as well as the 2 Makawao and Kula stations that are in the communities, and will be ready to respond to other things. The Pulehu fire, which is in the valley here, has no active fire right now, and it is contained. We don't have any resources on that fire, as that fire at this time provides the least amount of threat to our community. As mentioned, we have additional fire resources that may become available soon with General Logan's team from the National Guard, and they're at the ready for us in case we have any additional needs and additional fires on the island. We've been supported by 37 Honolulu firefighters. They all came with various capabilities, from incident management team to USAR capabilities, as well as firefighting. We've embedded them into our teams to work for the last few days, and that's been a great help to us to let some of our locals rest a little bit and then rotate them back into the firefighting assignments that we have for them. And then lastly, in the Pili, which is in the north side of Kapalua, on the north side of that Lahaina fire area, there is a point of distribution that there are dozens and dozens of retired and active firefighters who are assisting, getting supplies to the community that are being brought over from all the amazing and generous donators on this side of the island, and they're getting out to a lot of people in need right now. So just share that with you. Thank you.
Mahalo, Chief Ventura. Next, Maui County Police Chief John Pelletier.
Aloha. Patience, prayers, perseverance. That's what we need. I'll say it every time I come up, because if I don't say it, or you get tired of hearing it, or people get tired of understanding it, it means we've lost our patience, we've lost our faith, and we lost our will. The Kamana Aina of this island and this state will never, never lose their faith and will never lose their will, period. There are 99 so far. And I think that it was said very eloquently by the mayor. Our deepest condolences, because starting tomorrow, MPD will be pushing out, with partnership with the county, the names of those that have been identified and notified. If you have not been notified because of the way the state law is and the way we're going to do this, family notification has to take place. And then if we've identified them but we have not got a notification, we'll put something to state identified, notification pending. I understand that people want numbers. It's not a numbers game. Right now we're at 99 souls and families, so we're going to continue to do that. To date, 25% of the area has been searched. We started with 1 dog, we're at 20. We can only move as fast as we can, but we've got the right amount of workers, the right amount of teams doing it. Just so you guys know about the search teams and what we've assembled, because I cannot say thank you enough to the incredible work of the men and women of MPD, MFD, the National Guard, Public Works, and all of the unsung heroes. You know, all these things don't happen because elves do it. It happens because human beings are doing it. I think we take all that stuff for granted, and everybody wants perfection. But you're only going to get what you can get at the time. But the 25% and the leadership that's going right now, we have people that searched the towers 9/11, and I got reporters here and folks that they weren't alive when that happened. So you got to think about that you weren't alive when that happened. So I want people to understand the reverence of which we're doing this. The head of the FEMA team conducting this search briefed the team when we went out at the beginning and talked about this. It's not just ash on your clothing when you take it off. It's our loved ones. That's the reverence. That's why we can't have you walking down there. And we had to arrest somebody for trespassing. And so if we want to keep doing this and slowing it down, keep doing that. Do a Freedom of Information Act and figure out who that person is. Tell that story. Knock it off. We're going to do this right. We need you so much. If you're a family of somebody missing out of state, we need you to contact the Family Assistance Center. We will make a connection with the local law enforcement agency to get that DNA sample, and we'll make sure that we get that over. We've got a dedicated team that will begin the investigation component. I've actually started the investigation component. And D. Mort from the federal government will come on Wednesday to augment our team. And so we will get those notifications. We'll get them done right. God bless you. God bless Maui.
Mahalo, Chief Pelletier. Next, Brigadier General Stephen Logan, Dual Status Commander of Joint Task Force 50.
Yeah, aloha and good afternoon.
Aloha.
Yeah, I'm Brigadier General Steve Logan. I was here on Saturday. I gave my first press release, and there's been a lot of developments since then. So let me just cover some of those. We're up to a combined strength of 254 people. Let me talk a little bit about the Dual Status Command headquarters that I now command. It's comprised of Army National Guard, Air National Guard, and active Army soldiers and airmen that all came together. Traditionally, we wouldn't be working together like this, but because of my unique status, being appointed by the Secretary of Defense, I'm able to command and control these forces so that we can have or achieve what we call unity of effort. Each organization has unique capabilities, and this enables me to draw back to what's either on Oahu or in the rest of the Army, Navy, Air Force, or Marines, and through a process, bring those assets here. So of the 254 soldiers, airmen that we have here, many of them are involved in the security operations in support of the Chief of Police. Most of that is either at a shelter center or at the impact zone of Lahaina to help facilitate the recovery through this phase. Another bunch of those folks, about 47 of them, are specially trained in that fatality search and recovery effort. So they're intertwined with the FEMA folks, with all the folks that are doing that, and they're participating in that hard emotional type work. So that's what we've done in the last 24 hours. In the next 24 hours, we're going to bring forth another security team that's going to fly in tomorrow, and we have plans to bring another one in on top of that. And this is to further enforce the entry into the impact zone so that work can go unheeded and unimpeded. Tomorrow we're going to get a visit by the commander of the United States Army Pacific, General Charles Flynn, the Adjutant General of the State of Hawaii, who you normally see at this podium, Major General Ken Har, who's also been designated by the Governor Green, as the incident commander, and a lot of his staff. And the effort is going to be to come meet with Mayor Bisson, get his eyes on, and basically show that he's all behind this effort. Him and his team are constantly trying to look for ways to put more assets and capabilities into the county of Maui, and we welcome him tomorrow. That's all I have for now, and I thank everybody for your time.
Mahalo, Brigadier General Logan. Next, HECO CEO Shelley Kimura.
Aloha. I first want to start by recognizing the extreme grief of those that have lost family, friends. The entire state is grieving with you. All of us at Hawaiian Electric are grieving with you. We have employees on Maui that have also been impacted. And we cover islands of Maui, Oahu, Molokai, Lanai, and Hawaii Island. And our entire company across all our islands are in support of Maui right now. I want to open by saying that our employees will be there today and for however long it takes to help Maui recover. This is our home and our ohana, and we're not going to go anywhere. In the aftermath of the windstorms and fires, we immediately began to work with state and county agencies to assist with the clearing of debris and ensuring the safety of first responders. When weather and fire conditions made it safe to proceed on Thursday, we began our damage assessment, which included using helicopters and teams on the ground, in vehicles, and on foot on challenging terrain to determine the scope of the damage to our system. It was clear that our system that serves 12,000 West Maui customers had been severely damaged. All 3 transmission lines that go over serving West Maui were out of service. A day after inspecting the lines, our crews were able to restore almost half of all customers who had lost power. Hawaiian Electric worked closely with state and county emergency management teams who prioritize critical circuits for restoration, including those serving stores, pharmacies, gas stations, county water, wastewater, and public safety facilities. That's where we focused our work so that people would be able to get groceries, clean water, medicine, fuel, and other essential life needs. On Saturday, we brought back circuits serving hotels and resorts along the Ka'anapali coast, making those places available for housing and many people displaced by the fires who are living in emergency shelters. Even outside Lahaina, there's significant damage to the electric system. This is in West Maui. The repairs we've made to restore power to critical facilities is temporary. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done. By the end of the day today, we're targeting to have power restored to about 80% of the customers affected. And this doesn't include the homes and businesses that were in Lahaina. Of the 12,400 customers who lost power during the windstorms and fires in West Maui, we have restored all but about 2,000. This doesn't include an estimated 2,200 homes and businesses that were destroyed. Today, we safely energized the Lahaina Civic Center and neighboring areas, and we're working to use a mobile substation to bring additional customers online. We're working with Maui County and other agencies to set up community resource and information centers in West Maui to provide in-person assistance and information to residents. Right now, there's roughly 400 Hawaiian Electric employees from across all the islands we serve. In addition, we have numerous contractors from Hawaii and the continent focused on working safely to restore power, repair damage, and support communities and our employees. We've shipped 26 specialized vehicles and pieces of heavy equipment from Oahu, and more equipment and more people are on the way. This progress is due to the unwavering commitment by our employees, first responders, and many others on Maui, working under almost unimaginable conditions, and many of them suffering personal loss themselves, but are still on the job, working to rebuild and support Maui and their friends and families in the community. I've been meeting with members of our Maui Ohana over the past days, and I couldn't be more proud of them. Their hearts and hands are fully committed to this work. Based on our damage assessment, which is ongoing, as of this morning, we have 400 poles damaged or destroyed out of 750 in West Maui.
Right, apologies for the technical difficulty. We are working to get our connection back to the press conference happening right now in Wailuku with the governor, Josh Green, as well as county, federal, and state leaders. It's our understanding that our connection is back online. Let's listen in. At the podium right now is HECO CEO Shelly Kimura.
And sometimes unsafe for crews and the public. So our first priority is the safety of the public and our crews. This will be a very long and complex recovery. We're working closely with our state and county emergency management partners to ensure we're aligned on the same priorities for restoration and community support. This isn't just about getting the power back on for us and for all of us. It's about providing support and, most important, hope to those who have lost family and friends, who have been left without homes, and who are experiencing almost inconceivable grief. Hawaiian Electric is committed to being here for our Maui Ohana and for all of the community, no matter how long it takes. Mahalo.
Just a quick pause. Mahalo, Shelly. Next, American Red Cross and its Western LA Executive Director, Sean Inoue.
Good afternoon, everybody. I think I want to echo first and foremost the condolences and sympathies for the Maui community, for Hawaii, for the family, the friends, the community, the history that's been lost in these wildfires. Many of you lost homes. Many of you lost your businesses. We want to make sure that you feel that sympathy from us. I had the chance to visit to understand the scope of the damage and the work that was ahead of us. And I don't really think I have the words to appropriately describe the scene there. I knew this community is strong. I've visited, I've had the pleasure of being a part of this community in the past. It has been inspiring to see everybody pull together to make sure folks have what they need. And it started right here, right? Neighbors helping neighbors, rolling up their sleeves, pulling people into their cars, making sure they had a place to stay. The American Red Cross volunteers and staff have been on the ground working round the clock to make sure folks have their immediate needs met. And those are the priorities we're focusing on. Things like food, water, shelter. We're connecting with medical services, making sure they have disaster mental health care. And we want to continue to focus on those things. We want to also make sure that everybody knows that they are welcome at our shelters. Even if they're not staying there, they're welcome to come and get food, services, and make sure they're connecting with our partnering agencies to get really what they need on their road to recovery. Everyone has unique needs here. Every disaster is different, and we want to make sure we're listening to the nuanced needs that people have on their road to recovery. And that road to recovery, as all of you know and have heard, is going to be long and it's going to be challenging. The Red Cross is going to be here for as long as it takes to make sure folks are doing well on that road. So, thank you.
Mahalo, Sean. Okay. Finally, Maui Humane Society CEO, Lisa Labreck.
Aloha. I'm here to provide an overview of what Maui Humane has been doing to rescue, reunite, and treat animals who were lost or injured in the fires. We've deployed field services and veterinary teams each day for the past week in response to the fires across our island. We are also supplying pet food and supplies to the evacuation centers and other areas identified that are in need of supplies and veterinary care. We're working closely with the Maui Police Department to ensure that our teams are only working in areas that are cleared and appropriate for us to be in. And as those areas continue to widen, we will be able to expand our scope of services. Our animal disaster response teams are methodically going through these areas, collecting stray animals as well as deceased animals. The location of each animal found is pinned to a specific location. They are checked for identification and scanned for a microchip so that owners may be contacted. We ask respectfully that deceased animals not be moved or destroyed so that we have a chance to catalog and check them for identification. People are desperately searching for their pets, and they've been incredibly grateful to our team for any closure that we're able to give them. We've received numerous reports of live animals in various locations around the perimeter of the burn area in West Maui. So we've set up dozens of feeding stations with food and water to draw the animals out that may be scared and in hiding so that they can be trapped efficiently and brought back to the shelter. We are asking the public to contact our humane enforcement team with the locations of any sightings of live or injured animals. Now for some numbers. Right now we're estimating approximately 3,000 lost animals related to the recent fires. We have received 367 lost reports as of this morning, and this number rises daily. We are asking the public to please continue to submit lost reports so that we can reunite as many animals as possible. We're also asking anyone who has found animals to file found reports with the Humane Society and submit a photo of the animal in their care. Our teams in the field are bringing back injured and displaced animals each day, and our veterinary staff on site are treating both burn injuries and smoke inhalation cases. We have cleared our shelter of all animals we had housed from before the fires to make room for the animals impacted by the fires. Approximately 150 cats and kittens who were in our care prior to the fires are being transferred to rescue partners on the mainland with the support of Greater Good Charities who arrived on island this morning. And we're working with other partners for rescue options for the 115 dogs that were in our care prior to the fires, who are all housed in foster homes at this time. Horses and livestock from Kula and surrounding fire areas have been relocated, and we have a dedicated team available for any animal needs upcountry. We've received a total of 52 live animals from the Lahaina area so far, including 12 of whom are currently hospitalized in our clinic with injuries. To date, we have been able to reunite 8 animals with their owners. Our field services teams have been providing food and water to horses, pigs, sheep, and goats, both on the west side and upcountry. Today, they brought a 500-gallon water trailer and 3 trailers of large animal feed over to the west side. We have 2 veterinary triage teams set up, one at Napili Plaza and the other at Lahaina Civic Center, providing medical care to animals daily. Those teams will be on site every day for the near future. We are also booking appointments at the shelter to help displaced families obtain health certificates for travel should they need to leave the island with their animals. Our services will expand over the coming days, so please monitor our website, mauihumanesociety.org. We are currently open 7 days a week, and we are on call 24 hours. Lastly, I really want to thank our staff who have been nothing short of heroes this past week, working around the clock. The Maui community for the outpouring of support and the multitude of volunteers who have been showing up at the shelter daily to help us bag and distribute pet food and supplies, as well as all the other organizations from the Hawaiian Islands and throughout the country offering support and supplies. Those of us at the Maui Humane Society will be here for our community and the animals they love for as long as it takes. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Lisa. Now I would like to open up to the floor for questions from the media. I'd like to remind everyone that we welcome all questions, but we do ask for aloha and kindness in asking them. Please raise your hand and await my acknowledgement, at which time you will be asked to state your name and your news organization before proceeding with asking your question. I will also repeat the question back so that everybody can understand the discussion very clearly. In the spirit of allowing everyone in attendance the opportunity to try to ask a question, we're kindly asking for your kokua in one question per news organization versus per person in attendance. Mahalo nui, and with that, we'll start with our dear Martha.
Thank you for your time. Governor, is it possible to ask you a question, please?
Sure. Can you state the question so I can repeat it back before he comes up?
Yeah, of course. Governor, I've spoken to firefighters who say they didn't have enough water to tackle these blazes on Tuesday. I've also spoken to people all week who say they didn't have sufficient warning to evacuate. We know that Western Maui is designated as a high-risk area for wildfires. Were you unprepared?
So the question is around water and the Western Maui area and whether or not there was enough water.
Thank you for the question. I'll first start by saying again, and I appreciate it, that we're in the process of a comprehensive review that I've asked our Attorney General to do, and there'll be multiple reviews at every level to find out what the level of preparedness was, both before and then now. One thing that people need to understand, especially from far away, is there has been a great deal of water conflict on Maui for many years. It's important that we're honest about this. People have been fighting against the release of water to fight fires. I'll leave that to you to explore. We have a difficult time on Maui and other rural areas getting enough water for houses, for our people, for any response. But it's important we start being honest. There are currently people still fighting in our state, giving us water access to fight and prepare for fires, even as more storms arise. So when we talk about preparedness, we did look at many of our reports, and I am personally doing some of this review right now. We've designated some of these risks as low. Now globally, we're all facing higher risks with stronger storms, with global warming. I know some people don't like to discuss the science. It's there. Could we be more prepared? We will always try to be more prepared. Relating to sirens, people continue to be concerned. Nothing would make us, I'm not sure there's an adjective, nothing would make us more pleased if we couldn't go back in time and have a lot more protection from sirens. I lived on the shoreline for many years. In Kona, in Ka'u, traveled the state. Typically when sirens go off, they are for tsunami warnings. Typically when sirens go off, they are because we're worried a large storm is going to come, and people historically would immediately go upcountry if they heard a siren. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't have warning signs. Of course we should. Of course we should. But it's a lot more complicated than that. And typically the communication is by cell phone, on television. All of these modalities were destroyed with a rapid fire that was moving about 60 to 80 miles per hour at 1,000 degrees, melting fire trucks along the way. So it is a very complicated question. We will do all we can to get more water. We will do all that we can to get more warnings for people.
Thanks, Martha. I know hands are raised. What I'm gonna do right now is go with those that were here on Saturday and didn't get their question asked and answered. So we'll start with local Maui native Monica.
Monica Schmidt, Fox 5, Las Vegas. What's being done to keep generational properties and families? There's a lot of concern about predatory realtors reaching out to property owners already. What's being done to make sure that INA stays with local families and not going to developers?
So the question is around maintaining the INA that has been devastated and ensuring that that stays with local people.
Yes, so I appreciate that. That's very important to us. So I've actually reached out to our Attorney General to explore options to do a moratorium on any sales of properties that have been damaged or destroyed. Moreover, I would caution people that it's going to be a very long time before any growth or housing can be built, and so you will be pretty poorly informed if you try to steal land from our people and then build here. In discussions last night amongst colleagues of mine, people I trust, we're hopeful to create a memorial for the people in the state of Hawaii in this site. We'll also invest state resources to preserve and protect this land for our people, not for any development, for our people locally. I'll also tell you that this is going to impact how we view, because of tragedy, how we view all of the development in our state. And much of what we do is challenged by other laws, federal and otherwise, that don't let us restrict who can buy in our state, but we can do it deliberately during a crisis, and that's what we're doing. So for my part, I will try to allow no one from outside our state to buy any land until we get through this crisis and decide what Lahaina should be in the future.
I'm going to continue with those who weren't with us. Kalamai, who did not get their question asked and answered on Saturday. Up next, Paul.
Thank you. Paul Laker, Maui Alert. Two-part question for the governor / mayor. Sort of getting a mixed message about the state of affairs on Maui for visitors. We're telling them not to come, but we're also telling them we need your money because the rest of the island has to survive. So can we get clarity on what the message is? The second part is, and it dovetails perfectly with the question, what are we going to do for the rest of the economy that's disaffected by this disaster?
So the question is around tourism in the industry here and what is closed versus what is open, and tourism as an economic driver in Maui, let alone Hawaii. And then there's a larger question around the economy.
I guess I'll start. I'm not exactly sure what anyone else has been saying, but what we've said is, please don't go to west side of Maui. Don't go to West Maui. Obviously, there's so much going on with trying to rebuild it, but the rest of Maui is still open, such as South Maui, Wailea, Makena, Kihei. We've not shut down. We've not shipped anyone out. We've not asked anyone to leave. As far as tourism is concerned, I think obviously that's a major driver of our economy here. We'll have to see how many of our residents were impacted by the closure of some of the hotels, or at least slowing their business, especially if those hotels are offering to house our residents during this time. So I think anyone can understand these are things beyond our control, but we'll try to do as much as we can for the things that we can control. But I'll leave it to go.
I think it's a pretty sophisticated question. So during COVID, when we closed travel into the islands or into specific counties, I was able to navigate that process and seek relief for everyone in a region. During this crisis, this catastrophe, I will only likely be able to seek very significant finances and financial support for those who were affected. And that means people that were affected either through loss of jobs in Lahaina, or of course loss of property or loss of life. So it's a much smaller swath. So for that reason, we want to protect all people in Maui, and it would be potentially catastrophic if no one traveled to the island. We probably would see a mass exodus from Maui, but we will be compassionate. And I can tell you how we're going to support the economy of Maui. First and foremost, there will be emergency appropriations as necessary. Second, we intend to house our are individuals who are going to be rebuilding Lahaina, who are going to be doing the cleaning and the environmental protection piece of Lahaina and West Maui. So we will bring that economic activity, which means that billions of dollars through FEMA from the president, I have his assurance, which has been very generous of him, billions of dollars will flow into our economy. We will use local people to the greatest extent we can. I'm already contemplating a works project for local people exclusively, not unlike what was done in the era of President Roosevelt, so that we can have works programs and jobs created so that once we do rebuild, in whatever form that is for local people, thank you again, that's done by local people. So it actually will create a lot of economic activity, but in a tragic sense, because we will be rebuilding what we've lost.
Mahalo. Okay, Mika,
So,
name and organization.
Mika Miyashima with KITV4 Island News. We're seeing posts on social media, we're hearing talk about, mistrust with FEMA. So can you clarify what homeowners who lost their homes can expect, and is there anything binding them if they receive assistance?
Question is around mistrust in FEMA, and then what homeowners can expect if they've lost their homes.
Yes.
In terms of assistance.
And is there anything binding them if they receive assistance?
And anything binding them if they receive assistance.
So because FEMA's so busy in the field with recovery today, we've let them be. But I did get to spend a lot of time with the administrator of FEMA. The answer is no. Nothing will bind people or preclude them from other benefits. In fact, they'd like people to exercise a very liberal attitude towards asking for benefits right now. You do need to file your insurance claims in order to also get maximum benefits, but people should sign up for FEMA right now. There's a lot of things FEMA can offer, and though I'm not a FEMA official, I have learned quite a lot about what that is. First and foremost, it can offer rental assistance, and they will be covering the costs of rehousing people. So that's certainly not going to detract from anything a local person who's lost it all can get. Also, there are cash grants that go straight from FEMA to individuals that will, in many cases, hold them over for many months. I believe that the amount of money is up to $41,000 that an individual can get if they've had significant losses. There are several different programs that they have, all of which are meant to be generous and upfront to support them. In addition to that, those who may not qualify for FEMA benefits because they've been residents and family members amongst us, but have not been, for example, perhaps citizens, or they've been COFA residents, when I say that, we're going to make sure that they get benefits also from the state. So I don't want anyone to think that they're going to get benefits and the state isn't going to protect them. Also, when someone does make their claim for insurance, it doesn't bind them in any way except that they have to, of course, just be straightforward that they were the owners of that property. So those are the things. Let me say this. There is always a lot of distrust in government because some of government is crass and crude and not responsive. But that's not Hawaii. That's not Hawaii government. And I appreciate the fact that they're here doing some pretty difficult work. I also know that people are feeling hopeless because it's so difficult. But a lot of the decisions that get made behind the scenes are just based on safety. And so I, again, appreciate everything that everyone's done when government couldn't get to them. But there's a whole heck of a lot of government around right now to try to make sure that people are whole, whether it's me personally or the mayor or the hundreds of individuals from the military, the hundreds of individuals from FEMA. It's just quite extraordinary right now.
I'm going to go here to Dash. I'm Maka Ala. I see everyone. I'm going to go here to Dash. Name and news organization, please.
Yeah, K2 Honolulu. Just want to talk public for the police chief. We still continue, and I know you were asked and answered this days ago, but stories of looting, stories of people going in, and any of it been confirmed? And you mentioned the National Guard influx. Could that be a source of kind of pushing this back or keeping the security around some of these areas that are very prone to looters?
Okay, the question is around looting, and I'll just leave it there. Is that fair? Thank you, Dash.
Thank you.
So, well, I appreciate the question. It's not going away, and it's kind of, I'm going to actually piggyback on this. Last question on FEMA. We got a fake email that came in trying to cause people panic about FEMA coming in and undermine the credibility of the organization. We've seen fake anonymous letters and emails for a few years, and some of them are extortion and just all-out lies trying to undermine public officials. Looting. We got a huge scene. And I talked about what's in that scene. Talks about what's there's nothing to go in there as far as an item to go get in the contaminated area, but what you are getting is precious. So we're going to keep you out. We don't have, and for the people outside, Hawaii is the most loving, kind, incredible people. The spirit of aloha is real. It matters. So when you have people saying we have looters and rioters and all this other stuff, shame on you. These are our people, and they're hurting. And if we want to make something sensational, we'll make it sensational. But I checked before I came in, and I said, do we have any reports on looting? No. I got extra patrols up in Napili because people felt a little scared and nervous? Sure. If you're scared and nervous, we expect that. That's why I want to free my officers out of standing perimeter. I'm going to put his folks to stand perimeter so we can go be cops. So if you need to go in that area, do it when it's safe. Otherwise, stop being part of the problem. Be part of the solution. Thank you.
Steve, name and organization, please.
Steve Uehara, Hawaii News Now. Again, this is for Chief Pelletier. I just wanted to make sure that I fully understand what we're talking about with family notification. Are we saying that none of the 99, the families of the 99 have been notified yet that they've lost loved ones? And how does it happen tomorrow? Is it face-to-face and so forth?
So the question is around clarification of the notification, the 99 identified, that's fair, Chief, and then how does that process work for notification?
It's really a great question, right? And we talked earlier about doing it, Pono, doing it right. Once we get the positive identification, then I actually I have a DNA expert here if we ever needed to have that, but maybe afterward, if folks have individual questions, I could get to that. But what we're going to do is we're going to get a positive match. We actually have 3 positive identifications from fingerprints. 3. So I don't have more than 3. So there's 96 that we don't have fingerprints. So we can keep going deep, like you understand, so just I'm trying to be as reverent as I can, but once we get it positive, we have to contact the family. And then we have to make sure that we give that family that notification. We're obligated to give the family notification before I can release that. You can imagine how painful that's going to be. And so today, we wanted to make sure, because I personally had a fantastic conversation with the prosecuting attorney, Andrew Martin, who's really, to say he cares about his community is an understatement. And we talked specifically about, let's make sure we give the family the notice that this will become a public record and we're going to have to get it out. And so we want to give them that little bit of time, but what we will do is daily, and I'll figure this out, we'll push it forward tomorrow, because we'll make the notifications tomorrow. We'll push it once a day with if there's an update. So please, I get reporters asking about traffic, texting me and calling me directly. I got too much things to do than me personally talk about traffic. So don't call about, do you have an update on the number? We'll get it to you. I promise you we will. We're going to do it right the first time. So we'll publish it, and let's just say we'll have the names, and then we'll have how many are identified pending family notification, so you'll know that. And then obviously the rest of that number, whatever's left, we're still diligently working, trying to make sure that we can identify. And that's why that DNA is so important, because we got fingerprints from 3.
I'm going to go over here, change it up a bit. Christina, name and organization, please.
Christina Jadra with Civil Beat. This is a question for Ms. Kimura. This is a difficult question, but I do feel I have to ask. There are concerns about Hiko's lines falling, and that may have played a role in causing some of the fires. Your response to that, is there any indication that that is true?
So the question is around concerns about Hiko's poles falling and as it relates to the devastation.
We are in the very early days of responding to this tragedy, As you've heard, the things we've been focused on have been safety, restoration, aligning with the priorities of the state and county to restore the community. We've been putting all of our resources to that. We will be doing our own investigation. The state will be doing an investigation. We will cooperate fully in that. I think we all believe it's important to understand what happened. And I think we all believe it's important to make sure it doesn't happen again. And that's all we know at this time.
Shelly. I'm going to go over here again. Dan, name and organization.
Dan Picasso, Honolulu Star Advertiser. Chief Pelletier, if I may. You mentioned there was an arrest. Could you be a little more specific of what that alleged crime was, when it happened, and then going back to arrest, there was that brawl a couple days ago. Were there any arrests there? What were the potential crimes? Were law enforcement officers assaulted?
So the question is around clarification and some details around the arrests, or any arrests.
I'm not talking about the time I beat you up.
So the best part about my mayor is that he's a judge and he can call shenanigans. And that was 3 questions, I think. So, yes, you did. So I might answer it with just one time, like in such a way as to say it like this. There was an arrest yesterday for trespass. I will let you do the rest. I'll let you look at the details. I'll let you figure out what you want to publish, and you tell that story. But don't go in that scene. He issued the proclamation last week. Why are you still going there? Unacceptable. We already covered that. If we're talking about the fight when the 200 people stormed, officers were able to tactfully escort them out. I'll let you fill in the blanks on that. I got some folks that are very convincing. And there's not really a story there. So I'm just going to leave it to my last answer about the people.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I'm going to now mix it up and come down here. See, iHeart, I didn't forget.
Thank you very much.
Paul. No, not Paul. Okay.
Steve Gregory, iHeart Media, KFI Los Angeles. People we've been talking to, the word distrust has come up quite a bit in conversations we've had with locals. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that media are not allowed into areas, and there's no independent or objective reporting allowed because we're not allowed access. We're getting a sanitized version, we're getting a one-dimensional version of events. At what point is the media going to be allowed to start reporting what's really going on?
The question is around access as it relates to media.
Yes. So how many media went with us in on Saturday? Can we see a raise of hands? Because I'm sure there were many with us. 6 or 8. Because we had a media gaggle with us on Saturday. To suggest that we're not providing access is just simply inaccurate.
Well, we're being turned away.
Well, I'm glad you're being turned away in this case, because otherwise you'd be tromping on our dead neighbors. No. Now, I'll answer the questions. You've done enough. That is what's happened. We've twice been in there. We've showed a great deal of pictures. There's footage. If you want to see the dust of those who have been lost, that's what you would see if you walk down there. Moreover, we do want to tell the stories, which is why we're here today. And we're happy to tell the stories, but a lot of the stories are very personal stories that people tell us in confidence because they don't know yet themselves what they've lost. So feeding your desire to tell a story, you in particular in this moment, is not my goal. My goal is to make sure people are protected, my people are protected from the additional trauma. The stories can be told over the many months. Your desire to tell it here on day 5, when people are beginning to go through the worst psychological traumas of their lives, is simply ugly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. I'll go straight back there. Mm-hmm.
Wesley Corday for Press 24. I have a question about the placard distribution this morning. I don't know if the mayor or the police chief.
What's the question?
About placard distribution this morning.
Okay, the question. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, so there was a PD communication saying that it was stopped because there were basically people who had no business being there who were lining up. First of all, who were those people? Were these tourists or were these residents of unaffected areas? And second, why was the decision not made to continue distributing those placards to legitimate recipients and turning back people who were not?
In general, the question is around clarification on the placard system.
So MPD sent out the notification. MPD tried to make the placards, and we try to make it work. The problem is well, I don't see why everybody at 6 o'clock in the morning needs to line up to hurry up and get a placard for a legitimate reason to go out there. There was a very clear protocol for West Maui residents, for emergency officials, and other reasons. And so we didn't get that showed up. You know what we got? We got a whole bunch of people that are just real curious to get over there. And so they wrecked it for everybody else. And we try to have an orderly system. We can't do that. And it's no different than saying, hey, we've got free food and we're going to be distributing it. Because think about it, we were for 2 days and then tomorrow night we're going to start to enforce it. Why would we do that? There was a blue placard if you were a West Maui resident. And you would tape it up on your passenger side of your window and you could drive by and the officer could just simply wave you through and we would have no or limited or less congestion in the travel areas because you got already vetted. And so we thought if we put the distribution in non-essential areas, because that park right now was not essential, we could have the ability to stop clogging the ingress, egress, or the ways in. But some folks wrecked it, and they wrecked it so bad that the best thing to do was just to make a pivot and to institute the program that we had yesterday, and that's what we're going to move forward while we're in zero, and we'll get it as we can. But at the end of the day, if we think it's the juice ain't worth the squeeze, so to speak, then that's just what we're going to do. So I got tremendous support from the gentleman, the team behind me, and you know, the intent was good, but it just didn't work the way we wanted to. So we'll continue to look at different solutions, but that's the answer.
Are you folks together? You're separate. I'm going to go ahead here.
Wendy Osher, Pacific Media Group in Maui now. My question is for Chief Pelletier. You had discussed the sensitivity of the site over there, and we're in the middle of hurricane season. It goes on through the end of November. What is being done to protect the area, and do you think that you'll be done anytime soon with the processing? Give us a timeline.
So the question, it's a multi-pronged-ish question, which is around the protective measures in place, if any, due to the fact that there's hurricane season through November, and then the timeline for when all of that can be completed.
That's actually a fantastic question. So if I start throwing dates and times, I need a little bit of grace and latitude that we don't say, you said, and this is what it is. We'd like to get to approximately 85 to 90% by this weekend. No guarantees that we do. We talked about being at 3%, and now we're at 25%. And then we sort of started, and then maybe the percentages, and you're like, wait a minute, what about the numbers? And they didn't go up as quickly as they did, and that's a story in and of itself. We had, on the initial few days, done some recoveries, and when we ran the dogs, even though the area was marked, the dogs, because of their ability, found more. And so we went and back and retraced everywhere we had gone, because we don't want to miss anything. So I'd like to get us 85 to 90% by this weekend, and then we've got some decisions with some of the high structures. So if they're 3 or 4 stories, we've got to figure out how to get the equipment in to move some of that so that we can go in, and we just want to move to where we can make the recovery. But that does take some time, and then you're looking at several days to do that. I'd say no less than 4 or 5, but again, don't hold me to that. And then we can start moving out of phase 0. And we recognize that we'll consider that done, but it's always possible that we may find someone later. That does happen, but at least we will be very confident that the search was as good as we could have done.
I'm going to go all the way back there, this Wahine, all the way back here, yes.
Me?
Yes.
Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. We've been speaking to people who are...
Sorry, what was your name?
I'm from the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation.
Do you have a name?
Yes.
Okay.
People who are between areas, and they say that they would like to get to distribute supplies to people who are telling us that they're running out of food and water and are having to ration these things. Is this true? What is the disconnect between a lot of these distribution centers and people that are apparently isolated?
Question is around supplies and distribution centers.
This is the first I'm hearing of this. We have at least 3 hubs set up. Is this person from West Maui or from another part of Maui?
We've been speaking to people just south of Lahaina.
Okay. Yeah. So at the beginning, near Puamana. So the closest, we don't have any hubs set up in the impact zone. The closest one is off of Calvary Street, which is just across Cannery Mall, and it's huge. I mean, there's more than enough there. That actually is like a central hub that takes food out to Napili, the Napili Plaza, Napili Park. And I know there's more than enough. There's so much donations. That might be something you guys might, at some point talk about, but there's lots of generous donations of food, water. People are just allowed to come by. But another location is right outside here at the War Memorial Gym, where we have a whole field full of supplies, and people are allowed, from Lahaina, are allowed to drive through, pick up a food box, pick up water, and drive through. So we have two drive-through lines, one people dropping off donations and then people picking up as a drive-through. So I can't imagine anybody not having enough supplies that we've provided. And there's even more being brought in by military, our friends and family from all over the island. So that's my best answer I can give you.
Down here, Eager Beaver.
Tom Yamas, NBC News. Questions for Hawaiian Electric, please.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, why didn't you shut off the power when the wind started to pick up?
So the question is, why didn't you shut off the power when the winds picked up?
So as I said earlier, it's still in the early days. We're still looking at all the information, and we haven't actually had a chance to do all of that at this time.
With all due respect, it's been 6 days though, so almost 6 days.
And we've been putting everything we've got to helping our communities right now and our employees who are going through a lot and supporting them so that they can support the communities. You may be talking about what happens in California in the shut-off program. And so we, like most utilities, don't have that program. And it's worth noting that even in places where this has been used, it is controversial and it's not universally accepted. It can be seen as creating a hardship for those customers that have medical needs that are at higher risk. So these programs, particularly for elder or other vulnerable people who have specialized medical equipment, this can be a very high risk for them. So that's why many don't have it. It's also, it would require coordination with first responders. And as you have probably seen and maybe even reported, that in Lahaina, the electricity powers the pumps that provide the water. And so that was also a critical need during that time.
So to be clear, it wasn't an option. Shutting off the power wasn't an option, just to understand what you're saying.
There are choices that need to be made, and all of those factors play into it. And so every utility will look at that differently depending on their situation.
Thank you. I'm down to my last 2 questions. I'm going to go. Okay.
Chivo Ching Johnson with Akaku. Being in the very early days, there must be some volunteer work available for people that want to volunteer, and I know that will become more evident and more available. What can people do now if they want to volunteer, and what do you anticipate coming down the road?
Thank you. The question is around volunteer opportunities.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that is something that we would value very greatly. So, first and foremost, we have an incredible Red Cross team here, and volunteers at their centers have been very valuable. Also, we're about to house somewhere between 2,000 and 4,000 individuals who will need wraparound services. And a lot of those wraparound services are going to require some very labor-intensive support. So what we'd love to see is more and more people sign up with the Red Cross as volunteers. There's also, as you see some of our other leaders here in the Humane Society, volunteering there is another good thing. Just serving meals is going to be important. And remember, for volunteers, a lot of people are going to be economically devastated for some time. And so volunteering and support there is valued. As a personal request, for those healthcare providers out there, especially those who are social workers, psychologists, psychiatrists, and nurses, we're going to need extra volunteer work from there, and we'll be setting up places where people can get mental health care. So all of these things will be very valuable.
Can I also add to that? We welcome all the volunteers. We just ask for calling it in to our, go to mauicounty.gov to find out how you can help, because we want to coordinate this. We don't want everybody to come at once. So we've had staggered times at our facilities, at our evacuation shelters. We've had people who've gone out for deliveries on a bus that we take out, and as many as 30 or 40. But again, spread out over time, so people kind of sign up for a day that they're available. We ask people to donate money to the Maui Strong, which is part of Hawaii Community Foundation or the Maui United Way. So there's lots of ways people can donate, either financially, through goods, and or their time.
Thank you.
Final question is going to come down here.
Yes, Akira Sahiki from NHK News. I would like to ask, so it's day 5, and do you still stand with the number 1,000 people missing? Is it likely to increase or decrease? Is there any changes?
Okay, so the question is around the number that's been floating around related to people missing, which was also a question that was texted in by the Big Island Gazette.
And that question, and I respect it so much, and we are not going to be calling them missing, we're going to be calling them unaccounted for, because that's what they are, they're unaccounted for. And the story you heard about the 60 folks in one home, a lot of those folks were unaccounted for. No phones, no internet, no power. I'm going to throw a little kind of, you don't get it both ways. I'm sorry, you don't get it both ways. You want us to turn the power on, or you want us to do an after action? You're just going to turn the dang power on. Okay? You want notifications, or you want the power shut off? You don't get it both ways. And so we're going to get that number. I promise you, we have multiple, when I say multiple resources, I'm not even kidding. We have maps right now that I can explain. As we're doing the search, we've got that search with the known residents through the county maps. Plus, and then on top of that, we've laid the open source information. On top of that, we've got the investigator information. And so we're constantly moving the map to try to figure out and help us identify. And so we're building and we're using the best technology possible. So we're going to get everybody that's unaccounted for, to the best of our ability, accounted for. But I can't promise that we're going to get them all, and I don't think that's fair to ask that. And that's why the Family Assistance Center, the mayor was so passionate and so right. Please, if you're missing people, go there. Help us get that. We're bringing in from HPD on Oahu, we're bringing in officers and detectives to augment our team to do investigations as when family members come in, so we can ask the questions: who, what, when, where, why, how. And so we're going to get that to the best of our ability, but it's going to be relentless in our pursuit to do it right. Thank you.
Okay. And with that, this concludes our news conference. Mahalo nui for coming. We appreciate you all, and please pray for Maui.
And you just heard the latest from state, county, and federal officials on the Maui wildfires disaster. Lots of information to go through on a number of different related topics to this. Now, Governor confirms the number of lives lost has increased to 99 as recovery efforts continue through Lahaina town. The Lahaina fire remains 85% contained, but the perimeter has not expanded. Crews will be back out there tomorrow looking for hot spots from aerial views. The Kula fire, still lots of hot spots with a long perimeter, and there are also challenges with inaccessibility and fighting it with multiple helicopters. Starting tomorrow, the Maui Police Department will be notifying families who have lost relatives. Chief Pelletier says of the 99 confirmed dead, 3 people have been identified through fingerprint samples. The chief adds he's hoping to have 85 to 90% of the Lahaina impact zone searched for remains by the end of the weekend. A family assistance center has been set up at the Kahului Community Center for loved ones seeking unaccounted family members and friends. And HECO says it's aiming to have power restored to 80% of customers impacted, and that area does not include Lahaina. On the potential of real estate developers coming in to purchase land, this was brought up during the question and answer portion following the formal remarks. Governor Green says he is in talks with the Attorney General's office seeking a moratorium on any sales of properties that were damaged or destroyed.
Now, Maui Mayor Richard Bisson, he addressed the placard system that was supposed to launch today but was suspended less than 2 hours after that launch. He says they're doing away with the placards entirely, and going forward, all residents of West Maui can go in through Kahakuloa as it was before, and those dropping off items can go through the Ma'alaya side. Now, in regards to donations, 1 million pounds of food have been delivered. 557,000 pounds of ice. Now there is a coordinated donation center being set up by Lieutenant Governor Luke and state officials. That's going to be at the former Sears at the Queen Ka'ahumanu Center. It will be open tomorrow, and this will help organize all those relief effort donations coming in. But again, they stress, most important at this time is monetary donations and financial support. Now, recovery process. Governor Josh Green said there are 2,000 housing units available. That includes hotel rooms along with personal residences that will be available for those who no longer have a home because of the disaster. He says so far 220 families have already been placed into housing. They will guarantee 36 weeks, at least 36 weeks of housing for individuals. And of course, this will be for free.
Yeah, and people will get housed continuously. Again, a number of different topics discussed here. As you know, officials are just going by this day by day, trying to go through the impact zone, notify families, handle relief and the response efforts. We'll have more news after a short break.